Hello, everybody. Welcome to another old school pre-recorded episode of NeoUnrealist. I guess having done yesterday the analysis of Adam Crigler's video detailing at least his version of events of why he was no longer with the Timcast IRL podcast. Remember, this happened back in August of 2020, so we're talking about 2 years ago. I guess it's only fair, since unexpectedly, shockingly to me, Tim Pool did a Saturday morning live stream, and just to show you how rare this is, here's Tim Pool's Timcast channel, which is basically his personal non-IRL channel. Okay, look how long it's been since he did a wild live stream. Okay, millennial woman ashamed of out-earning husbands 4 years ago. 11,000 views 4 years ago. This is Tim pre-Timcast IRL, so we're talking 2018. So yesterday, I guess with all the stuff going on, because remember, it's not just the Adam stuff. I think the Adam video was the cherry on the top of Tim Pool's troubles this week, as he's got the the alphabet people trying to get him canceled, and apparently a greater than usual volume and intensity of doxing attempts and death threats against him, or at least that's his claim. I can't verify it. You know, I'm sure he gets a lot. You know, any even marginally visible person on the internet has to put up with that kind of crap. But anyway, be it here or there, that's the subject for another video. We're here to talk about, I guess, Tim, about an hour into it, he started to address the Adam stuff. So let's go into that. I have it keyed up to the spot where he starts talking about Adam. So in the video, he spoke for the first hour, essentially in chronological order, kind of doing what Adam did, where he gave his basically life story in terms of his online YouTube, kind of his status in this realm, starting with his obviously going back to his work with Vice, around the time he met Adam with when he was doing the Occupy stuff, getting his that job with Fusion. So he kind of went through the same thing, and paralleling Adam's narrative, they seem to agree on a lot of the facts. I can't really think of any statements of fact where their stories differ. Mostly, believe it or not, it's a matter of interpretation of the facts where their stories differ. But anyway, he does that, and he gets to this point, and I guess this is where we should start listening in, and let's let Tim take it away.
IRL, I can film the daily goings-on, because vlogs were very popular.
So, yeah, I should mention before that, this is the point where he's mentioning what he had in mind when he first thought of Timcast IRL, why he did it. Essentially, he wanted to expand his output. He was happy with where he was, but he wanted more. He wanted to put out more. And in he came up with the idea in his mind, hey, let me get some guy to kind of fill in an area where I'm not doing, so I could focus on what I do, hard news all day, and then at night, get to some subjects I'd like to get to, but aren't quite hard news. And that, in his mind, is what his idea for Adam's role would be, what he would do for him.
And I was like, I want to make other stuff. I play music. I skateboard. I have friends who do this stuff. There's an opportunity there. I was vlogging before. And but what I want to do is, I want to go places, pull up in the van, the mobile studio, bring out a table, sit down, and Timcast IRL podcast. Sitting at a table, people can come up to me, not too dissimilar from what Crowder was doing with Change My Mind. Very similar. Probably, in fact. I don't remember when, if I think he was doing real conversations and that turned into Change My Mind. And I was like, it would be a hybrid of that. But I wouldn't be trying to change anyone's mind. I would just be having conversation. So it wouldn't be so much that I would assert a position like Crowder would. And, the lockdowns happened. COVID happened. And I said, there's no way I can do this. So I need to turn it into something different. And this is where Adam comes in, who is a really good friend. We used to play Magic the Gathering together all the time. We'd have game night. Magic, so much fun. Met him when I worked for Vice. One day, because this is how Vice is, you got nothing to do. And I end up saying like, all right, look, we're not scheduled to do anything until for like a week. I'm hanging out. People are leaving. I'm going to go hang out at this store. It's called 20-Sided Store. And I went. It was early in the day. And Adam was there with a longboard. And I had a deck with me. I was like, hey, but you want to play? And he's like, I didn't bring a deck with me. And I was like, all right, whatever. Just bored, want to play some Magic the Gathering. And then he was like, me and my buddies do a game night. You should come hang out. And I was like, dude, that would be epic because I don't have anybody to play cards with. And they also, I think they played poker. I don't know if I ever played poker with them.
It just strikes me how innocent their relationship starts. It's just two guys. They're just looking for somebody to play Magic with. Tim's working at Vice. He's making that Vice money, but he doesn't have friends to play Magic with. I guess at that time he had to move to New York. He's not like me. I've lived here all my life. He doesn't know anybody. Oh my God, how do you find Magic players in New York, right? if you're new there. So it just strikes me how wholesome this is. I just want to play some Magic, man. Will you play with me?
But it was a big poker table, and it was so much fun. And we would hang out all the time, and I ended up, this is during Vice, ended up getting, and then Fusion, getting an apartment right next to Adam because I needed a place when I was working at Vice, and he was like, get this place. And that apartment actually screwed me over. This is hilarious. They rented out my apartment, and they didn't give me my deposit back, and they moved people in. But I was traveling for Vice, and so I just was like, I showed up one day, because I had gotten another apartment. And then I showed up one day, and the doors were locked. And I laughed. I still had a key to the front door, but the apartment door. So anyway, here's what happens, right? Adam had lived with me in Miami. We wanted to do a show. It didn't really work out. I had brought Adam into Fusion. I wanted them to hire him as like a skate kind of personality, youthful exuberance kind of thing. I don't know what happened with that. It didn't really go anywhere. But, Adam was killing it with modeling stuff. And he was taken care of. So he didn't need anything from me. But then when I was like, I need to do something.
Right, so here, Tim, again, it's a strange thing between these two guys. Because they're making videos, or I don't want to say Tim's video is entirely about Adam. I'd say about half of it. And here they're making videos or doing live streams, essentially bashing what the other guy did, but they spend a big chunk of these videos validating each other. So basically, Tim is saying here, listen, when I met, for people that think that, Adam was clinging on to Tim or something, no, apparently that's not how it was. Tim is acknowledging here, Adam didn't really need me. He was already doing fine on his own. He had his modeling thing. Apparently, their thing was just Magic the Gathering, and the fact that, for the chemistry between two bros, they hit it off. They got along.
That's different. I need to do something that's like I already have a political show. We need something else. It's funny. That's always been what we've done. Hence, pop culture crisis. My view was it would always be better, bigger, a pop culture show. I genuinely believe this right now as well. Pop culture crisis, which we launched almost a year ago. Has it been a year, actually? How long? As long as Pop Culture Crisis been up. Might be longer than that. I can't remember.
For those who...
no, I think it's been a year.
Who don't know what he's talking about, to believe it or not, Tim does have another channel that he doesn't appear on. It's Pop Culture Crisis. I think the hosts are Nick and Mary Morgan, who will appear on Timcast IRL whenever he's short a guest or a co-host. But anyway, Pop Culture Crisis is doing what he essentially originally intended Timcast IRL to be, or at least that's what he's about to reveal here.
Talking about pop culture is infinitely more marketable than talking about politics. Now, we have the advantage of politics being pop culture and me having built this thing up over 10 years to the point where it's at now.
All right, so he's right about that. You know, for a lot of you who wonder why this stuff is important, remember Andrew Breitbart. Politics is downstream of culture. As much as we want it, you know, the stuff that we tend to think is important to be important, it really is important to a small portion of the population. You know, what Kanye West says is a lot more important to millions of people than, you know, the top political story of the day in terms of what they watch. So yeah, if random celebrity X says something stupid or gets into some trouble, you know, that's going to attract a lot more eyeballs than you know, some bill that Nancy Pelosi wants to ram through Congress. That's just the facts, and that I think that's what Tim's getting at here.
And so I think Pop Culture Crisis has the potential to become substantially bigger than Timcast IRL ever will be, because news about, you know, like I got a story pulled up in front of me, Kanye West, that's on timcast.com. Cassandra, bravo with the scoop. News about celebrities is just the average person likes celebrity gossip. It's just a fact. And it's cultural issues. You'll notice that cultural channels, they do way better than we do. They get way more views. Like you take a look at the quartering, for instance, versus Timcast IRL. Jeremy gets I think he gets like
shit.
5 million.
As he starts talking about the quartering sent a $20 super chat to Tim saying, "Stay in your lane, Beanie." That's funny.
More per month than we do. Shout out Jeremy, cool dude. Good. He's a good guy, and he addresses more culture war issues and stuff, and that is it's popular culture. So he gets a lot of views addressing the overlap. We go politics because that's always been my thing, but we do cultural politics. But so I told the pop culture crisis guys like Brett and Mary, and I was like, you guys do pop culture, and it overlaps with cultural stuff too, because you guys will be way bigger than we ever will be. You know, somebody wants to hear about the retirement of Nancy Pelosi versus Kanye West gets into a rap battle with, you know, insert celebrity or something. Like, people are going to be like, yo, I love that song. So here's what happens with Timcast IRL. The goal of the show early on, if you take a look at it, and I'm sure there's a lot of things I forgot. There's a lot of my interpretation of things, of course. The first few things we did were like UFO sightings, Bigfoot, skinwalkers and stuff. And I was like, I want to do something that's very different from what I already do. And so the show should not be political. We should periodically.
So he's talking about the Bigfoot sightings, UFOs, and all that. Yeah, they did stories like that. But again, another channel that Tim started in his vast YouTube empire. He does have a guy now that covers supernatural news from a debunking perspective. So the guy is not. I forgot. I don't know what the name of the channels is. It Strange Tales or something to that effect, where the guy presents stories not trying to make you believe in them necessarily, but from a skeptical point of view. I think that's the angle.
Have like guests come on, but it's mostly going to be like, you know. I'll put it this way. I never wanted to make the Joe Rogan Experience. That is just people just claim that, I guess. I don't want to do what Joe Rogan does.
Tim countering the accusation that he wants to be Joe Rogan.
And we never wanted it to.
Which
but what I really
think
love
is silly. I don't think people are saying that he wants to copy the format of Joe Rogan and he wants to mimic him. I don't think that's the accusation against him. If he wanted to do that, well, then he could model himself after Joe Rogan right now. I don't see Tim, smoking giant blunts with on his show. Just my note on that, on his defense there. Is
weird and wild stories. What I really love is talking about paranormal reality or paranormal activity, alternate reality stuff. Alex Jones is so fun to listen to in that regard.
This explains why he has Ian there, because that sounds like it's in Ian's wheelhouse. Talking about the weird shit.
And so I was like, we should talk about like cool, creepy stuff. IRL. Like, it was originally supposed to be this vlog, but we'll just use the channel, had 70,000 subscribers. And then I'll just start streaming on it and we'll talk about, whatever. And then two things happened. The pandemic. So it was really hard there was no news. Politics was pop culture. And it's like, and my existing audience was very interested in addressing the news of the day.
It's funny that I want to point out also that also in the chat at the time, speaking was Nerdrotic, who says pop culture is culture. I think that's ironic in that Nerdrotic is a friend today of Adam Crigler. At least I've seen Adam appear on his channel a lot. So it looks like the new crowd that Adam hangs out with, at least in terms of his YouTube persona, was represented in the chat.
So the show started to turn into something that it wasn't supposed to be. The goal was to have guests early on, but it was to talk about. It was like the idea would be to find stories. Here's how it breaks down. I did one segment on Timcast, youtube.com/Timcast. I did 5 on youtube.com/Timcast News. I thought to myself, I upload at 10 a.m., 1 p.m.
All right, here I will. Hats off to Tim on this, and he's describing his workflow. The man was insane for a time there. I don't know how the hell he was doing it. The guy was putting out like 5-6 videos a day, if you count the IRL stuff. So it was crazy. And I'm not talking about just clipping. He was putting out like 4 videos on his main channel. He was doing Timcast IRL, and then he was sometimes popping out another video on a third channel he has, which it's just named Tim Pool. So it's pretty nuts. This guy woke up in the morning, worked all day, did Timcast IRL, and went to sleep. So how he pulled that off for almost a year, I have no idea.
4 p.m. on the Tim Pool channel, and then 6, 6:15, and 6:30. How do I get a video to drop every hour of the day? Okay, maybe not like midnight to 8 a.m., but every hour of the day. How do I produce more segments?
All right, let me stop right there. Boom. The fucking plight of the YouTuber. Okay? There's two schools of thought, or 2 ways to do YouTube. All right? In terms of uploading videos. We're not talking about live streams here. We're just talking about making videos. People don't understand. Tim's version of it is took him 2 hours to make a 10-minute video. That's when you're really good and you know what you're doing and you're efficient. In terms of an scripted and edited video, holy shit. Because then on top of everything, once you've got it done, you've got to render it. That's fine. The way Tim was putting out his content was he stopped doing the full editing deal. I think he only did it for one video, his 4 o'clock, as he's going to cite. And what he was doing was basically talking into the camera as if he's doing a live stream for 10 minutes, and then, boom, upload that. So, no pre-production, no editing, just Tim talking into a camera and uploading it to YouTube. So this is how he had increased his production. And even doing that, guys, YouTube ain't digging ditches, but it's time intensive. So even doing that, his day was pretty much full, because if you're going to pull that off and not put out garbage videos, you have to know what you're talking about, because remember, you're going to be talking 10 minutes straight with no cuts and no edits, and you basically have to deliver it, without too many verbal gaffes and errors, because that sounds like shit too. So you have to know your topics, and then you have to keep. If you're doing one video like that a day, okay, fine, that's no problem. If you mess up, you just do another take. If you're trying to pump out 4 or 5 videos a day and then do a live stream, at night, you don't have a lot of time to waste during your day. You're pretty much, in the studio all day doing that. So let's hear how his version of. It's interesting because you're getting an insight into basically AAA big time YouTube production here.
Need something else. I can't talk about the same stories. They've been talked about. I've really reached the cap with talking about everything. But there are these other stories, very similar to how I launched Timcast News, that I don't talk about. Skinwalker Ranch. Cool stories. UFO sightings. Doesn't really, you know, they don't really do that well on the Timcast news channel, but I wanted to talk about them. Why don't I stop doing that and make a new show that's just different for different people? Then what we'll do is it'll be segmented. We'll talk about something for like 10 minutes, clip it, and that will be how I get more segments up every day. Instead of me doing research, because my 4 p.m. segment was like, it took 2 hours to make. The other segments were like free form conversation, and the 4 p.m. was I would literally just, or the Timcast news was literally just talk. 4 p.m. was talk, stop, screen grab, talk, edit, condense, and that was so stressful and hard to do. With Timcast IRL, I could add, 4 more segments, 3 more segments. We would pull 3 stories. It would be a UFO sighting. It would be we had a guy come on talk about relationships. Those were in the news. It was topical. I wanted topical stuff that wasn't politics, that I thought was interesting, that I didn't have the energy to do more monologuing on.
All right, so
I needed.
Why am I wasting your time listening to the plight of Tim Pool? This, I think, was the genesis of his problem with Adam, which doesn't come up in Adam's live stream, is that Tim Pool's vision for what Adam's role would be and what Timcast IRL would be was different than what it evolved into. Obviously, due to the COVID lockdowns, his inability to get guests, and just, I guess, Adam's preferences for how he likes to do things, it evolved differently than he foresaw. So, I guess yesterday when I said it was about the money, it wasn't just about the money. It was kind of Tim's vision and the workflow that he wanted to establish for his operation. So, yeah, I think this was, believe it or not, more than Adam yelling at Lydia, about the specific issue that seems to have been the triggering for his firing, or as Tim's going to claim later, not firing, but we'll get to that. Here is Tim actually, I think, describing what his real problem with Adam was.
It helped. And I hit up a few people. And then ultimately I was like, I tried doing something with Adam. He's the guy for this. And I hit him up and I was like, would you want to do a show? And here's the pitch.
Better Call
here's the
Saul
breakdown.
Reference there.
Here's what I need you to do. Basically, I do my morning show. And then you only do the night show with me. But, I'll pay you a base rate plus a percentage of what the channel does because the
boom! Base rate plus a percentage. So again, the initial seeds of what the problem would eventually become. Tim, in his mind, he needs Adam to come do this for him. I'll give you a base rate plus a percentage. I think that percentage grew way beyond what Tim thought. When Tim was thinking, maybe he was thinking this show would reach a certain level, and then it just evolved away and just grew bigger than he ever thought it would be.
Joke I always make, and anybody who knows me knows this, is I'm a communist. And I think that people should get paid a proportion of the product they create within reason. And so the structure that I do with everybody is you will be compensated based on the money generated by your projects, period. I don't believe in doing a business model and where, I'll pay you, X amount of dollars. And then when your book comes out and makes $1 million, congratulations, you've been paid already. Nah, F that. There's no way. And I'll tell you why. They'll just quit and you lose everything. And so I'm more like, we'll cover our costs. We'll take a tiny single-digit premium, but we're going to give you everything. If you write a book, you make yourself $1 million, bro, I don't want your money. I want your books to keep getting written. I want us to have a means to push back. There are problems with that mentality because some people quit anyway. But I don't believe in this.
And here, Tim is describing the eternal problem of the businessman. This doesn't just apply to YouTube. This applies to almost any business. I had the same problem. I had a business fail because of this. Same kind of issue. Okay? You don't want to pay your employees. You want to pay them so that they're comfortable, but you don't want to pay them so much that they just don't need you. Okay? As cynical as that sounds. Because what you'll find yourself doing is you're basically then investing in your future competition. And when I say future, it's your immediate future. Because once they pretty much know what to do, how to do, they realize, well, what do I need this guy for? and they just go off on their own and start their own thing. So here's Tim. He faced the problem of the business owner, in that good employees, you have to compensate them. You have to compensate them well. But if you compensate them too well, you're basically funding your competition, because they will, especially if they're especially competent or resourceful, they will become your worst competition. And you will have invested time, money, and resources into someone who is no longer working for your benefit. So I could sympathize with them on that level.
I've been advised by like other CEOs and businesses. They say never pay your staff enough that they can quit. And I'm like, no, that's dumb. If they want to quit, they should quit. I don't want them here. And so that's my motto. If you don't want to be here, you shouldn't be. If I pay you a bunch of money and then you decide you're going to leave because you saved up enough and now you got to be here, I'm like, I wish you all the best, man. Congratulations. If you want to be here and the money isn't what matters to you, you'll save your money and you'll do the mission and things will work out. And so at Timcast IRL, we encountered a very serious problem early on. One being the COVID pandemic, and two being pop culture became politics. So the show started shifting into this realm in a way that I didn't want it to. And I asked Adam, early on, like, what I need you to do is, when I'm doing the morning show and researching all this news, try and find stories that fit this vein of things that I'm not talking about. UFOs, for instance, or DMT trials, or, dating scene and culture stuff. And what ended up happening was, for whatever reason, I don't know, Adam didn't want to do it. And I think he liked what the show was becoming. We had the soundboard. I have the Stream Deck in front of me. You press the button, and Greta Thunberg would be like, "How dare you? How dare you?" And you could press a button, and Trump would go wrong. So when like either of us would disagree, we'd hit our buttons, wrong, and then we'd counterpoint. It was fun. I firmly believe that if we stayed on that trajectory,
pay attention here,
it would have been the biggest podcast.
This is one of the most important things of what Tim says. He acknowledges what they were doing, had he kept doing it, would become one of the biggest podcasts in the world. He does not dispute that. I find this interesting. He does not dispute that they would have had great success together. So it's not a thing where he thought that he couldn't go forward with Adam. He's saying he thinks they would have achieved great success. It's not what he wanted. Now, some of you might be asking, what do you mean he didn't want success? No, he wanted success, but he wanted it on his terms. He had a certain vision for what he wanted, and Timcast IRL, the way it had evolved with Adam, is not what he wanted. That, and he felt he was doing all the work, and it was cannibalizing his day, what he had built over years with his day streams, day videos.
I did not want to be the biggest podcast. I didn't want to do a show like that. It was turning into that. But you know what? I was fine with it. I had a conversation early on with Adam of the main problem. And this is just the cold, hard truth. I had promised Adam a percentage of revenue for the channel.
See how the money comes up again? He's doing something, it's not exactly what he wants, and then he realizes he's paying Adam a shit ton of money. Okay, think about it. They were having some shows where they were getting 80,000 concurrent viewers. The super chats were probably insane. They were probably making tens of thousands of dollars on episodes like that. So you could see here how this was becoming a problem, because Tim is now basically paying Adam almost as much as he's probably making, except here's the difference, and this is the problem I had in my business. The employee's making a ton of money, but he's taking no risk. Meanwhile, you, as the business owner, okay, you're living well, you're not starving, but all the risk is yours. So all the problems and the overhead and the payroll that you got to meet, the liability, all that's all on you. So people think you're living. I mean, you're getting the biggest bag of money, but that bag of money is spoken for. It's not fully liquid. Whereas your employees, you give them that money, that's theirs. They don't have to worry about anything. So I think this is Tim. Tim is running a business, quote unquote, a business empire, and he's got he's got to take out of his cut. He's got to pay all these people, and I think he felt he was doing the heavy lifting, and Adam was basically getting all the juice.
But because we were not producing segments that were substantively different from my existing channels, which were getting 500,000 views at this point, immediately at the launch of this show, the viewership on Timcast and Timcast News started to precipitously decline. Because I would put out a segment like Trump does backflip, and then at 6 p.m. I'd say, you ready for the show? Do you have any stories? And Ed would say, no. And I would say, what do we talk about? And he goes, just talk about whatever you talked about earlier. And I was like, bro, I can't do that. I can't double up my segments and just split my views. The people who watched, this is the problem we still have with Timcast today. This is a fact. Often, because this is what it turned into, the 4 p.m. segment, I try very hard to avoid this, will be the biggest news of the day. But so does Timcast IRL, has to be the same thing. So what's happened? The Tim Pool Show's views, way down. The Tim Pool Daily Show podcast, way down. I went to Adam within a month of doing the show, and I said, bro, this show's not going to last. I do a morning show. I've worked really, really hard to get to this point. I do everything to make it happen. I want you to get a percentage of the revenue from Timcast IRL. But when we put up two of the same segments, this morning I put up, Story X occurs, and then we do Timcast IRL and put up another segment, Story X occurs. Instead of me getting 300,000 views, I'm getting 150. And then the segment at night gets 150. And then the revenue is divided, and then you want a portion of that. But that's not what I'm trying to do. And I have a mission. I want to make a brand. I want to...
This is Tim essentially telling you, it was the money. It was the money. So, as much as people are going to object, or at least Tim is going to object and say it wasn't the money, he's describing his fundamental problem here. You could agree with him or not. I think he has some valid points. This is something he and Adam should have and probably could have been able to work out eventually, I think. But, essentially from his perspective, he's spending a lot of time. He's not talking... I haven't heard anything about, Adam's interactions with Lydia at all. He's talking about money here for the last 20 minutes.
Challenge the Disneys. I want to push back, and I can't do that if I'm sinking myself by launching a product with a pay structure that is siphoning away from what I've already created. I couldn't do it. That's the truth. And I said, though, this is the structure that we've made, and I'll honor it. And I need you to understand that. I need you to find separate stories. If we make a show that's bigger than my other channels, that's fine. But if we're just already, if it is me relying on my research to talk about the same thing I already talked about with your co-hosting and commentary, that is just a net negative on my business.
Boom. I mean, that point I'll give him. He's right there in that terms, in terms of, then basically it's no different than what I'm doing right now. I'm watching something that Tim Pool did, and I'm commenting on it, right? So Tim gets nothing from me in terms of what his remuneration would be. This is not adding to his channel, his business. So he has a point. He has a valid point here, in that it seems like he had a different vision for what Adam would be doing, and if just circumstances beyond their control, it evolved in a different direction. Tim didn't like it. He wasn't happy. It was making money, so he couldn't just stop it. He couldn't pull the plug. He had to fund his empire, or his the growth of his empire. So he couldn't just pull the plug, but he was not happy with the direction things took.
At this point, I was making about $60,000, $70,000 per month on my two channels, Timcast News and Tim Pool. And
that's not counting Timcast IRL. He was making 60 or 70 grand on his other two channels. Okay? And he felt that IRL was essentially cannibalizing his personal income?
Very excited. I was beginning to look to purchase a building to expand, and we of course wanted to launch Subverse, which was a separate company. And then all of a sudden, I saw that my podcast was losing views because Timcast IRL was starting to gain all the views. And I said, this will be the end of what I've been building over the past 10 years. Unless we stay on focus, we can talk about news and politics, but bro, I need you to source segments that I don't do. And if people prefer to watch.
Keep in mind, he has the same problem today. The only difference is he doesn't have Adam getting whatever Adam's percentage was, 40%. Okay, I'm guessing Ian is not getting a massive chunk of IRL's revenue. He's probably getting something. Okay, but he's probably not. He's not getting an Adam-sized chunk of IRL's revenue. So if his income is going to be primarily derived from IRL or the revenue to the business, he needs a bigger chunk of that. And I guess technically today he faces the same problem because he has the same structural issue. He does his daytime videos, and then his IRL show is going to reflect largely a lot of the same news that he talks about earlier. So in that sense, he has not solved this problem. All he's done is just lowered his overhead so that he can make it work.
The stories that you chose over my stories, it's totally fine. But if it's just going to be me doing all the work, coming onto the show, and then giving you half my money, like, bro, we have a problem with that. And so that wasn't the reason why Adam ultimately left the show. He wasn't fired. He wasn't, and he was never fired. In fact, what ended up happening was
he's saying he wasn't fired. He wasn't on the show. I mean, you could call it what you want. And yes, Tim apparently did keep paying, the base salary and the project that his wife, Adam's wife, Nisha, was working on with him. His music. So, I guess technically you're not fired if you're still getting some kind of remuneration, but I mean, effectively he's off the show. So, I mean, we're not talking about Adam Crigler getting fired from the Tim Pool universe. What we were talking about is him no longer being part of the Timcast IRL podcast, which clearly he wasn't any longer.
There were a few instances of, I don't know how to describe it, internal company conflict. We had a couple other people. It was like three employees at this point, really small, and I had to say things like, "Hey, like we can't have this. Like, hey, you can't do this." And so ultimately, what ended up happening with the early iteration of the show is that it got to a point where, the reality of the money thing is totally true. I absolutely felt like I had worked so hard sleeping on floors and, working 16-hour days to just enter into a deal that saw me lose half the money when the deal was supposed to be that, Adam would do pre-production for IRL so we could talk about UFOs and dating drama and pop culture. And it was turning into me talking about what I already talked about, but I now had to give him a portion of the revenue.
Okay, so, I mean, this is beyond doubt. He's just slam dunked it right here in terms of this was about the money, guys. The drama with Adam and Lydia, I think was just a way for Tim to solve his problem. You understand what I'm saying? It's like this. It just fell into his lap because apparently he was addressing this right before the stuff with Lydia exploded with Adam, because Adam revealed that this was about a week before that they had spoken about this. So maybe Tim just didn't want to bring it up with Adam early on and just kind of like subtly hinted at it, and then it just became more adamant about it as time went on. And then the Lydia thing happened and he was like, okay, then just go. But it is clear to me on Tim's side this is the biggest problem that he had with Adam.
And so I agreed to it. And I said, I'll have to figure this one out, but you make the deals, you stick with them. It got to a point where Adam was paid so much that we were legally blocked from actually offering him more money.
Here, I don't believe that. Nobody's going to... You could pay your employees whatever you want. There's no legal block, okay? Yeah, Tim's not a public corporation. He didn't do an initial public offering. Okay, he's not a Fortune 500 company talking about restricting his ability to give non-cash compensation like stock options and things like that. Okay, this was still his show, Lock, Stock, and Barrel. All right, your YouTube channel, you can do pretty much whatever you want. It's a small business. Okay, it may not be smart. I mean, obviously, it may not be smart to give half your profit away to somebody else, but I don't think there's any legal blocks. So I'll dispute him saying that he legally was prevented from paying more.
At this point, we started making six figures per month. And my accountant informed me that, like, hey, you're paying this guy too much. He made substantially more than...
Here I'll say this. I bet his accountant was saying something. He was like, yo, your employee's making basically as much as you are. So I bet that was an issue. I have no doubt. Don't say it was a legal issue, though. That this was just a issue of sanity, of running a sane business. Look, let's be honest here. There's always going to be money issues. If Adam wasn't his friend, okay, and this was the agreement they had reached, it'd still be a problem. Okay, so from Tim's perspective, the thing with Lydia, I knew this yesterday doing the live stream. I seriously doubt that he ended a multi-year friendship and a business arrangement because he yelled at Lydia. And I just pretty much assumed this was the case. I didn't think he'd come out the next day and pretty much acknowledge that, and to Tim's credit, the fact that he is acknowledging it was the money, even though I kind of don't like it, he says he doesn't care about the money. Dude, you cared about the money, obviously.
I did. And he was like, you're paying this guy too much. There's a limit on what we can do through payroll because of I don't know exactly what they said. But they were like, you're going to have to figure out an alternative structure. And I was like, okay. I was like, man, this is getting crazy. And, but the money was never the issue. And I want to be totally upfront and clear about that.
He says the money was never the issue. He spent a half hour talking about the money. No Lydia. There's no Lydia in this conversation yet. He has not said her name. In relation to the situation with Adam, between him and Adam.
The fact that he was getting paid so much and he was getting paid more than me wasn't an issue. It was like I described it as like it's like a personal issue to me, but like it's I genuinely was like, we're gonna have the biggest podcast in the world, so my boy, man, it's gonna work. You know what I mean? Like I still own the company.
Look,
I still have
that. I don't think Tim had a problem with if Adam's making a lot of money. I think the problem Tim has, he feels it was at the expense of what he had built in terms of his day video uploads and all that. And I think he also felt, whether rightly or wrongly, that the workload was disproportionate on him. And he felt if he's going to get half, shouldn't he be doing more? Shouldn't he be originating research, originating segments? Essentially, I'm not saying this is. I'm saying this is Tim's point of view. Whether it's valid or not, I'll let you be the judge.
The control of everything, and it may not be what I wanted, and it may be turning into something else. And I think there's a risk to the Tim Pool Daily Show, but I think this is going to be something big, and I think maybe that's the way it was supposed to be. Until the final straw happened, and that is it's just a broken, sad reality. I know that Adam did a thing talking about me. I hope you guys, check out his stuff, and if you like him, you watch him. He deserves it. He's a cool dude. It's unfortunate that these kind of things happen in business. He told his version of the story. I've only seen some clips of it. I've had people hitting me up. I
don't believe that. I mean, I don't think Tim watched the entire 6 hours, but I think he clearly had to have seen the portion that applied to him. Okay, I don't know. It's just maybe he didn't because he says things that don't make sense about it. So I'll stop it and explain what I mean by that. But I'm guessing he saw pretty much the part that applied to him directly.
I think it was a particularly inappropriate time considering the amount of threats that we've been getting. Dragging my girlfriend into it with stories that aren't true is just so brutal. Just so brutal. My family being dragged into it.
I'll take issue with this. The timing, I don't think the timing is something on Adam's part because let me be frank with you. From my limited interactions with Adam, I don't think he paid attention to Tim's show at all. I'm pretty sure he doesn't watch it. He's never interested in stuff about Tim. If I message Adam with something Tim said about him, 99% of the time he doesn't want to hear about it. So I don't think Adam pays attention to Tim, or at least Tim on his show basis and what's going on around him. When he was getting doxxed and all that stuff, Adam had clueless about it. And keep in mind, he's basically left the country for certain periods of time in the past year and stopped his show, so he's been out of it. There was like a 6-month period where you didn't really hear from Adam. He basically totally checked out of social media practically. So I'm not even sure Adam's even aware of any of the stuff going on around Tim. That's just my perspective. I could be wrong. I'm not with the guy. I don't know what it's just my sense, even before this happened, that Adam Crigler does not essentially pay attention to Tim's world and what's going on it. He's got his own stuff going on. And I think for his mental sanity reasons, he just doesn't follow Tim day to day.
So brutal. My brother never sued me. He was mad about name rights. He never sued me.
All right. Tim's saying that his brother never sued him. Maybe that's technically accurate. Maybe his brother never filed a lawsuit formally. But to pretend that wasn't a thing, yeah, his brother was mad at him. So that's a distinction without a difference. Whether he went forward with and filed the lawsuit or not, that's just a matter of public record. You know, somebody could check on that. But does it really matter? I mean, there was an issue with his brother. Boom. Revolving around the naming of the use of the name Subverse.
So here's what happened. I apologize to Lydia for having this become like a public thing, I guess. We were doing the last episode with Adam, and when the show ended, he yelled at Lydia.
Okay, so apologizing to Lydia for this becoming public. Notice he doesn't debunk what Adam said, or maybe he does at some point later because he calls it lies. But to this point, he has not disputed what Adam said. And keep in mind, Adam intimated that he believes something may have been going on, but he did qualify and say he never saw. He said what he saw was Lydia in Tim's bed. Okay? So take from that what you will. Maybe you could say that's a cop-out. Again, I'll let you be the judge. But so far to this point in this video, Tim has not denied what he said he apologized to Lydia for was that it went public.
Look, I know everyone's got their version of events, but it was bad. I had to say, dude, chill, stop.
I don't doubt that Adam was yelling at Lydia. I think Adam himself says that maybe he lost his temper. When you say the word lost your temper, I take that to mean you were yelling. So I don't doubt that he was yelling at Lydia and he made her cry. That seems both parties in this, I think, agree on that. I think they just interpret the event differently. Tim interprets it as, that was it. That was the final straw. This had to stop. I had to stop it. And Adam was like, well, wait a minute. You yell at Lydia all the time, and this wasn't an existential issue then. Why did it suddenly become an existential issue with me when I yelled at Lydia? So that appears to be the thing. They're saying the same thing happened. They're just drawing different conclusions from it.
Saying Tim simped for Lydia. He chose hoes over bros. No, that's not what happened. What happened was I had two friends, and they were fighting with each other. One friend didn't understand, I guess, that there's only so much you can do in terms of allowing instigated aggressive behavior.
Okay, I'm going to agree with Tim there. If you are an employer, and technically Tim, even though he's their quote-unquote friend, they're friends, everybody, that's the problem. This was so muddy, and they were all locked in that house. He is the boss, and if anything happens, he's responsible. So yes, he had to do something. He had to step in. If you have a guy yelling at your employee and she's crying, yeah, it's not simping. He's the employer. If he let that go on, he could be slapped with oh my God, the legal liability is practically unlimited. Okay, they would say he allowed a climate and culture to exist where employees were berating each other to the point of tears. Yeah, you can't have that.
Legally. It's not the first time I tried warning him to chill out. He's like, bro, come on. He had sniped at Lydia. I know they don't get along. I know why. I understand. And I'm sorry that he felt that way. I wish that wasn't the case. But you can't yell at someone to the point where they're breaking down in tears and just keep going. And then have me, it only stopped when I was like, bro, stop, chill. And then he stormed off. I understand why he was mad.
All right, so keep in mind here, I don't take issue with Tim having intervened there. The problem obviously became the resolution of this, where the resolution was Adam was gone. So he is right in that aspect. As the employer, he can't have this go on in front of him, especially because if this is going on in front of him, he'd have no shield. They'd be like, this is not like he's running some 5,000 person operation where he has human resources to deal with this. This would have been happening. He would be a witness. So that part, okay, Tim, you stopped Adam from yelling at this person that was crying, but how you resolved the issue is where it just got bizarre.
I sympathize. It's a sad story, man. But you can't take it out on a coworker. I want to ask you guys, what do you think would happen if you worked at your company and you started yelling at a coworker to the point where they broke down in tears, and it was not the first time you had an altercation? What do you think's going to happen? I'll tell you what happened. The next day, I thought letting Adam sleep on it would be the appropriate thing to do. Let everybody chill out. I messaged him on Facebook and I said, hey man, you can't yell at coworkers like that. And then he said, I don't want to misquote him, but to paraphrase was basically like, I'm allowed to speak what I want to speak and express myself. You know, I don't respect her. I don't think she's good at her job. She says things that I think are inappropriate, and you know, I'm going to call her out for it. And the gist of the conversation was me saying, I get it, bro, but you can't yell at people, like to the point where they're in tears. And then he said something like, if you don't like what I have to say when I say it, then I don't need to be here and I will leave. And I said...
Okay, so here's the fundamental problem. The ultimatum, not ultimatum. It's the same event, but both sides interpret it differently. Tim asserts that this was an ultimatum. Adam says that it was not an ultimatum, that he would have been willing to continue on with the show with Lydia. So we have a problem here. We have the fact is not a dispute. It's the interpretation of it that is. Both men say that it was a different thing. I don't know how we resolve that. If this is happening on a Facebook conversation, we don't have the text of that Facebook conversation. I don't even know if it still exists with either party. But the bottom line is they have a fundamental disagreement on what Adam's position was in terms of ultimatum or not ultimatum.
And if that's what you want to do, then so be it. Leave. And he said, okay, fine. He got in his car and he left. And then I said, okay, I guess I'm going to take full mantle, which I kind of felt like I was doing mostly anyway. I'm just going to do everything. There was a big reason why I told him to chill out. And there's the stupid, unfortunate reason, which I hate, and the personal. The stupid, unfortunate reason is like, if I as an employer have an employee, and I had 3 or 4, scream at another employee to the point of tears, that employee has a legal grounds to take action against me.
Yep. Okay, Tim, I don't dispute what Tim says there. He's 100% right. Okay, on that. You didn't have to cut the guy off immediately, and to the point where it was so abrupt. But again, on this point, I have to give it to him. Yes, this was happening at his place of employment in front of him. He would have been personally liable, for just the legally liable for any consequences or even fake. You got to remember too, people. It's not just what actually happens; it's what people say happens. They don't. You can file suits for anything, whether it's legitimate or not. So, if I'm Tim, yeah, I don't want to open myself up to that kind of legal liability. That's the problem when you mix friendship and business. In that, okay, if they were not his friends, this would have been a lot easier for him. He would have cut it out, or you're fired. This is the problem when you mix the friendship with the business.
Unless I address it. Anybody who works for a company knows it. Adam was not fired. He said, if I don't like what he's going to say when he screamed at an employee, then he'd leave. And I said, if that's what you think, then so be it. He came back later that day and said, so what are we going to do? And I was like, what do you mean, what are we going to do? And he was like, what's it going to be? Like, fire Lydia or
here,
me?
Again, Tim is interpreting that Adam drove off or left or whatever as him abandoning his job. Obviously, Adam didn't see it that way. So again, we have another 2 men seeing the same event differently in real time.
And I was like, bro, you already told me you would leave. And you did. And I've been sitting here all day. Like, what am I supposed to do? You think now, after you put that over my head, you're going to walk back and I'm going to I'm all of a sudden just going to be like, it's all you, bro. Feel free to threaten the destruction of the show unless you fire the employee you don't like. Talk about an impossible situation. So here's what I said. Bro, we can't do this. Like, I can't. There were already the issues with we weren't the show it was supposed to be. There were already issues with I felt like you weren't doing the production.
It wasn't that. I'm telling you, it was the cherry on the top. It was the original issue of the pay structure, the show not being exactly what he wanted. And I think this Lydia thing, this incident, it just let him end what was clearly already bothering him.
Need you to do. We've already had altercations with you and Lydia to the point where I have to take action. Not just as an employer, but as friends with 2 people. You didn't want to stop yelling at someone. What am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to be loyal to? So you know what I did? Man, I'm such a stupid person. I built Adam, I bought him whatever he wanted for his own studio. I gave him the studio in the basement, shouted him out every which way, and he was never fired. I kept paying him. And it's stupid because it opened me up to so much risk. Because I did not want him to leave the show in this way. I did.
All right, so I guess we have here Tim describing the messy kind of breakup, because it was an extended breakup. It happened over weeks or months. So I'll spare you guys the rest of it. Go see Tim's video for the rest. It was a 2-hour video. He goes into other stuff. It was not just the Adam situation. But there you have it, guys. I'll let you decide. Are you Team Tim, Team Adam, or don't care? I'm kind of torn on this. I see both men have issues that obviously to them are very valid. I just think that you would hope that normally this would have been able to be resolved, but I'm coming down on the side where Tim just already had the issues with the pay stuff with Adam, and in his mind decided, you know what, I'm gonna arrange the world around me so it's convenient for me, and I'm gonna just move Adam out of IRL. Now, does that make Tim a bad guy? I'm sure a lot of you maybe who come down on that will probably think that way. I don't know. I've lived long enough where I'm to the point where I've realized most situations aren't as simple as they look from the outside, and it's usually a lot messier and a lot more convoluted. So when you have basically what it boils down to is a he said situation between Adam and Tim. Tim saying Adam wasn't fired, I think, is disingenuous. He may not have fired him in the sense where he cut him off and he stopped his base pay and all that. And he did seem to have tried to set him up, help him set up his own thing. Is that Tim's guilt there for, having, not going forward with him in the way that maybe he had envisaged? It seems that way. I mean, he didn't have to do that, but again, the main issue is okay, he wasn't on IRL anymore, and obviously that's what most people care about. That's what most people were most shocked about. Anyway, I think I wanted to be fair to Tim in that I did a full hour's analysis of Adam's video live stream, and given the proximity of Tim's response being almost not even 24 hours later, I guess I felt that it would be fair to Tim to give his video the similar amount of time and analysis that I gave to Adam's video. So I've done so, and I will leave it to you, the ladies and gentlemen of the NeoUnrealist jury. How do we go forward at thinking about this? I'm not going to tell you what to think about it. I've given you perspective on what I think. I think it's messier. I tend to think Adam's version is probably closer to the truth, but I'm not saying it's the full truth because Tim clearly had an issue that I guess Adam either wasn't seeing or didn't want to see. So I think that may have been another part of the problem. Anyway, we'll just leave it at that. So that's going to be it for this NeoUnrealist. If you want to help the channel, do me a favor, hit like for this video. Leave a comment below. Mash down the subscribe button if you're not already subbed to the channel. Click on the notification bell next to it. Put it on the all setting to keep up with newer content. YouTube's been a bit better about notifications lately. I don't want to say they've solved their problems. Obviously, people are still saying they don't get notifications. I don't know the mechanism. I don't know how they choose or how the algorithm chooses to send notifications. Clearly, it's not what we would expect or want, but there it is. Now, if you want to contribute directly to the channel or toss your hard-earned dollars into the tip jar, you can follow the links in the description of this video below to either Patreon, Subscribestar, or PayPal, whichever you like to use. Or if you're one of those that is watching this on BitChute right now after it uploaded there, you can click on the green tip pledge button on the video player. You could also use the new, on YouTube, they have the memberships feature. Is it the monthly memberships? I believe the button for that is also right next there to the subscribe button. Anyway, guys, the most important thing about this close is thank you for watching.